due to protest in London today to keep all of their tips. They're particularly highlighting Pizza Express, which started in Soho in the 60s, which takes 8% of tips paid on credit cards to cover admin costs. Pizza Express says all cash tips go to their waiting staff. Now, earlier we spoke to Dave Turnbull from the Unite Union.
Essentially, if you pay something on a credit card or you pay a service charge that's charged on the menu, that money legally belongs to the employer until they decide what's going to happen to it. So once they've decided, there's kind of a contractual arrangement between the waiting staff and the company because a decision's been made. But until that decision's been made, it's legally the property of the employer.
And having got a statement from Pizza Express, they dispute absolutely the interpretation of the way they handle credit card gratuities with the Unite Union. They say, and I quote, "We choose to operate a trunk system. One of the big benefits of this system is that tips made by electronic card payment and other discretionary service charges are paid without the deduction of national insurance contributions. This is perfectly legal. Our restaurant teams are charged an admin fee of just 8% compared to national insurance contributions, which would have been 12% if we did not operate a trunk system. Therefore, we are saving our staff money. They are getting more of the tip because they're not then shelling some of it out as NIC. Otherwise, they'd be required to pay that. They are better off, they say, with this system. Unfortunately, we did not get to put that point to Unite."
Joining us now is Ufi Ibrahim, the Chief Executive of the British Hospitality Association. Good morning to you, Ufi. Where does the BHA stand on tips?
Good morning. Well, dining is all about customer experience, and we really leave the choice of tipping to the customer. No customer needs to feel obligated or pressured to provide a tip or accept an optional service charge.
But how about the way that this trunk system, for example?
Well, the trunk system is really a way in which the government has set out a scheme where the employer, and usually it's a committee of employees themselves, who then decide how any gratuitous tips or discretionary service charges should be spread out across the staff. And in many cases, the committees decide that it should be spread out not just for the front waiting staff, for the waiters, but also for the teams in the kitchen too.
I suppose the other concern about this is, from the union's point of view, and it's a very difficult one, I'd imagine, for the hospitality industry because it's such a varied industry, is this question mark about 0 hours contracts. Now, I quite often will host a corporate event or go along to a dinner, and you look at the staff and you realise they're doing this as a part-time job, they're doing it as something maybe as students to help with the fees, they're doing it as somebody who's possibly even a retired person. Other places, though, have to have staff there all the time. Now, how prevalent would you say is the 0 hours contract operation within the hospitality industry?
Well, I think that the name is a little bit misleading, 0 hours contracts, because, flexible contracts are very, very good for both employers and employees in given situations. It's good for students, it's good for people who are caring for others, or may have other circumstances where actually they don't want necessarily to be tied into an inflexible work schedule. So, in a sense, where it's right for the employer and where it's right for the employee, so long as it's not, embracing any exclusivity clauses and therefore is legal, we absolutely support flexible contracts.
What about tipping? Why is it that some companies, for example, put a 10% gratuity on there before you actually get to the bill? How come some do 12.5%? Some even do 15% or 17.5%, I've even seen. Where does it actually come from?
Well, yeah, there is a difference, Penny, between optional and sort of discretionary service charges. So if, the restaurant, for example, and they can actually suggest a service charge at the end of the bill, if it's clearly labelled as being discretionary, then you can actually make the decision as the customer to pay it or not pay it. It's up to the customer to decide whether they want to do that. Tips are added over and above that. So a tip is really where the customer might feel that somebody has done an outstanding job and really wants to reward them over and above any item which may be on the service, sort of the added item on the bill.
But you don't have to pay the service charge on the bill, even though it's been actually added there, do you? I mean, if you think that the service has been terrible, you can take it off.
Absolutely. So if it's an optional or discretionary service charge that's been suggested by the restaurant to reward their employees, it really is up to the customer to decide, A, whether they want to pay it, or they can actually say, well, actually, I feel like paying a little bit less. It's usually commonly around sort of 10 to 12%, but the customer could easily say, well, actually, we don't want to pay that full amount. We'd like to pay a little bit less than that, or say, I don't want to pay that amount at all. And really important, I think, one of the things that restaurants really welcome is if the customer hasn't had a good experience, they want to know about that so that they can actually do something about it.
And you keep on saying if it's a discretionary or optional. Surely a service charge is always discretionary or optional. You don't ever have to pay it, do you, if the service has been terrible?
If the service has been terrible, you certainly don't have to pay that service.
Or even if it's been good, you don't have to pay it.
Well, that's right. I mean, the whole prospect of the discretionary service charge or tips is for the customer to decide whether they wish to pay that to reward the employees of that establishment for giving them a good customer experience.
Thank you for joining us, Ufi Ibrahim there, the Chief Executive of the British Hospitality Association. The other thing I've never quite fathomed is why sometimes, and I've been blessed, as you know, with a big family, there's lots of you, lot the Smiths, and you go out and it says, if you're in even a pub restaurant, it says, and there'll be a gratuity of 12.5% for tables of 6 or more. Why is that more work than 3 tables of 2?
And you'd have thought it was less work, because it's actually easier to go and sort it all out.
Hey,
anyway,
we've given them food for thought.
Oh, do you like that? Libby.